I pulled the trigger on the man who stole my face, but the bullet that killed him set me free, or damned me forever. They said my father went mad, ranting about souls swapped like chess pieces in a Pentagon basement, but I knew better. The madness was mine, trapped in a stranger's skin, plotting to burn it all down. When those 300 SEALs rose like a tidal wave in that gilded hall, their fists to their hearts, calling me Admiral, in voices thick with salt and blood oaths, I realized revenge wasn't a victory, it was just the start of the real war. My name is Nova Hale, or at least it used to be. These days, when I catch my reflection in the smoked glass of a DC briefing room or the rain-slicked hood of a black Suburban idling outside Langley, I see Harlan's face staring back, jowly, silver-templed, with eyes like chipped flint that could stare down a drone strike without flinching. Rear Admiral Elias Harlan, the golden boy of the 7th Fleet, the man my father trusted like a brother. The man who carved out my life and wore it like a second skin. It started 6 months ago, on a muggy August night in Arlington, the kind where the Potomac smells like diesel and regret. I was 28, fresh off a stint as a policy wonk for a Senate Committee on Defense Appropriations. Nothing glamorous, just endless spreadsheets and redacted memos that made my eyes bleed. Dad, Admiral Robert Hale, U.S. Ret. Pending, was the real deal, a legend who'd stared down carrier groups in the Strait of Hormuz and come home with enough ribbons to choke a horse. We weren't close, not in the Hallmark card way. He was all duty and Dawn PT runs. I was the daughter who'd bailed on Annapolis for a master's in international relations at Georgetown, chasing stories instead of salutes. But blood's blood, and when he called me to his McLean Colonial for one last family briefing before his retirement gala, I showed up with a bottle of Glenfiddich and a chip on my shoulder the size of the Beltway. Harlan was there, of course. Uncle Eli, as I'd called him since I was knee-high to a bulkhead, all avuncular charm in his summer whites, nursing a scotch and swapping war stories with Dad about the Gulf dust-ups neither would ever write a book about. "Nova, kiddo," he said, clapping my shoulder a little too hard. "Your old man's finally hanging up the spurs. About time we got some fresh blood in the command." His laugh was a bark, the kind that echoed off the cherry paneling like small arms fire. Dad chuckled along, but his eyes, steel gray, same as mine, flicked to me with something unspoken. Worry? Pride? Hell if I know. We clinked glasses, talked shop about the latest carrier pork in the NDA, and I crashed in the guest room upstairs, the one with the brass telescope pointed at the dark sprawl of Arlington National. I woke up screaming. Not the polite, muffled kind, full-throated, vein-popping howls that rattled the windows and sent the housekeeper pounding on the door with a 9-wood in hand. His body felt wrong from the jump. Heavier in the chest, looser in the joints, like I'd borrowed a suit 2 sizes too big and forgotten to tailor the inseam. I stumbled to the mirror over the sink, and Harlan's mug grinned back, slack-jawed and sweat-slicked. "What the fuck?" The voice was his too, gravel over bourbon, the timbre that had boomed through 100 Oak Club toasts. I pawed at the face, digging nails into jowls that weren't mine, feeling the stubble rasp under his fingertips. Panic hit like a depth charge. I retched into the porcelain, heaving up last night's steak and the bitter dregs of betrayal. Downstairs, the house was a tomb. Dad's study door hung open, the safe cracked like an egg, papers fluttering in the AC draft. My car keys on the hall table, next to a slim black fob I didn't recognize. DARPA issue, the kind you don't see outside black budget briefings. I snatched it up, thumbed the biometric lock, and a holographic menu flickered to life. Neural sync protocol active. Transfer complete. Subject A, Harlan E. To Subject B, Hale N. Reversion window. 72 hours. My stomach bottomed out. Body swap. Not some sci-fi wet dream, but real as the Beretta 9mm in the drawer. Dad's pet project, funneled through a skunkworks lab in Nevada. Mind transfer for deep cover ops. Eternal vigilance, they called it in the white papers I'd skimmed for work. Harlan hadn't just stolen my life. He'd hijacked it, leaving me stranded in his aging hull. I dressed in his clothes, crisp khakis that hung like a shroud, and slipped out before dawn, the fob burning a hole in my pocket. The drive to the city was a blur of taillights and talk radio ranting about border walls and forever wars. I ditched the Suburban in a Georgetown garage, flashed Harlan's creds at a corner Starbucks for a Veni Black, his taste not mine, tasted like regret, and holed up in his Colorama row house. The place was a shrine to ambition, walls lined with framed citations, a humidor of Cubans older than me, and a wall safe that yielded a burner phone, and a dossier thicker than a phone book. Operation Eclipse, the cover read. Inside, blueprints for a coup. Harlan's play to sideline Dad, frame him for siphoning black funds to Iranian proxies. The evidence? Forged logs in my handwriting, Nova Hales, the trusting daughter with Senate access. He'd use me, his new skin, to plant the seeds, then detonate at Dad's retirement bash, painting Robert Hale as the traitor who'd sold out the fleet for a Swiss account. Betrayal doesn't hit like a gut punch. It seeps in, cold and insidious, like Potomac fog. Dad had greenlit the neural sync years back channel from his carrier days, believing it could save lives. Pilots ejecting into hostile skies, minds jumping to safe hosts. Harlan? He'd twisted it into a throne grab. Power in the Navy wasn't just admirals. It was the shadow board, the contractors who'd bankrolled his rise. Dad stood in the way, a relic too honorable for their drone swarm wet dreams. And me? Collateral. The perfect patsy, smart enough to access the docks, young enough to discredit as unstable. I'd borne the mistake before. At 18, I'd covered for Dad's indiscretion, a one-night lapse with a junior officer that could have tanked his stars. Took the heat as the family scandal, let the Whisper Network chew me up so he could sail on. Now Harlan was cashing that chit, burying me alive in his flesh to bury Dad in a brig. The first days were survival. I logged into Harlan's email, password, Eagle176, his academy year, and fielded calls from aides with voices like chipmunks. Sir, the SEC nav wants your read on the Taiwan Strait sim. I grunted affirmatives, pieced together his calendar. Briefings at the Pentagon, lunches with lobbyists from Raytheon, a private consult with the NeuralSync eggheads. I played the part, mustache twitching under my lip, his lip, barking orders that came out too soft, to me. Nights, I pored over the dossier, mapping the kill chain. The swap chamber was in a bunker under Quantico, off books, guarded by private mercs on KBR retainers. Reversion in 72 hours meant Harlan had 3 days to cement his cover as me, cozy up to Dad, slip the forged docs into my confession, then ghost back to his body, leaving me catatonic in a psych ward. But I wasn't going catatonic. I hit the gym in his basement, free weights that felt like anvils in these meat slab arms, pushing until the lactic burn drowned the dysphoria. Ran 5 miles at dawn, lungs heaving in a body that remembered Namera ruck marches. Ate his macro shakes, choked down steak tartare at power breakfasts, learned the art of the backslap and the sidelong glance. Controversial? Hell yes. By day 3, I was signing off on a strike package for Yemen, Harlan's pet project, cluster munitions in a wedding zone, that made my stomach turn. Collateral's the cost of freedom, Admiral, his XO said, and I nodded, pen scratching the approval, knowing each signature damned kids I'd never meet. Was it revenge or complicity? The line blurred faster than a drone feed in a sandstorm. I reached out to Dad through back channels, encrypted text from Harlan's burner. Rob, it's N, trust nothing. Meet at the usual, 2300. The usual was the Vietnam Memorial, black granite walls etched with names that haunted his dreams. I got there early, Harlan's overcoat flapping in the chill, and waited in the shadows like a bad spy novel. He showed, right on time, 6'4" in civvies, salt and pepper buzzcut, moving like the deck still rolled under his feet. Eli? What the hell is this cloak and dagger shit? His voice was a rumble, but his eyes narrowed, scanning me, himself, for the lie. Dad, I whispered, voice cracking in Harlan's baritone. It's me.
Nova.
The words hung there, absurd as a fever dream. He froze, hand twitching toward the .45 I knew he carried IWB. I spilled it all. The dinner, the fob, the swap, showing him the hollow menu flickering blue in my palm. His face cycled through shock, rage, calculation.
Jesus, Kid.
That tech. It's mine. I shut it down after the trials. Harlan must have hijacked the prototype. He paced the wall, fingers tracing a name. Alt JGM. Hale, his brother, Kia 72. He was like family. Groomed him myself. If he's in your skin. The implication landed like a keel haul. Harlan as Nova could gut us both, whisper poison in boardrooms, bed the right aid for leverage. Dad's retirement gala was tomorrow, 300 guests, brass from Foggy Bottom to Coronado, a telecast on C-SPAN 2. Harlan staged to drop the hammer. We had a plan, rough as sandpaper. I'd play Harlan through the event, feed him bad intel, isolate him post-reversion. Dad would dig for proof, logs, witnesses from his old network. But as we clasped hands under the monument's vigil lights, he squeezed too hard, eyes wet. You're tougher than I ever gave you credit, Nova. If this goes south, make it count. I nodded, throat tight in this borrowed trachea. Betrayal's deepest cut isn't the theft. It's realizing the man who raised you saw your strength too late. By Gala Eve, I was fraying. Harlan's body ached like a hangover that wouldn't quit, prostate flaring from the stress, a sciatica twinge that shot fire down his leg with every step. I prepped in his walk-in closet, starching the mess dress blues, polishing the stars that gleamed like accusations. The invite list burned in my mind. SEC-Def, the chief of naval ops, a phalanx of SEAL teams Dad had commanded in the Bin Laden raid. And me, Harlan, the MC, scripted to toast the legacy before unveiling the irregularities that'd land Dad in Leavenworth. I slipped a micro-recorder into the breast pocket, synced to Dad's secure line. One confession, captured clean, and we'd flip the script. The morning of the gala, DC woke to a shitstorm. Harlan Azmi had struck early. A whistleblower dropped to the post, anonymous sourcing from a Hale family insider. Headline screamed, Admiral's daughter alleges cover-up in Gulf Arms scandal. Father implicated in $200 million kickback scheme. Bylines tied it to me. Nova Hale, the jilted Politico with a grudge, spilling docs I'd supposedly found in Dad's safe. Twitter, X, whatever the hell they call it now, lit up like a carrier deck fire. Halegate trending, MAGA accounts howling, deep state purge, blue-check journos dissecting my motive as daddy issues. I scrolled it from Harlan's leather throne, bile rising in his gut. That was my byline they'd crucify, my face, his face now, smiling from my LinkedIn headshot, plastered across Fox and Friends as the villain's daughter. I fielded the fallout like a pro, stonewalled the calls from CNN producers. No comment, Admiral out. Leaked counterdrip to a friendly at Defense One. Sources say fabrication, full audit pending. But inside it gnawed. Controversial decisions? I'd greenlit worse that week, authorizing a cyber op that fried Iranian centrifuges, knowing it'd spike oil to $120 and jack up grocery bills for every minivan mom in Ohio. Necessary evil. Harlan's journals called it, scrawled in a bedside cipher I'd cracked with a Perl script on his laptop. Evil.
Yeah.
But necessary? For what? His corner office at Booz Allen, or the yacht in Annapolis he'd never sail. Dad called at noon, voice encrypted through a VPN bounce. Nova, it's unraveling. Jag sniffing. They want my stars by sundown. Static crackled then. Harlan's holed up at the Hay Adams, posing as you. Reversions tonight, 2,300 his suite. We hit him there. The plan evolved. I'd corner Nova at the hotel, fob in hand, force the sink back mid-gala prep. Risky as hell. The tech needed a Faraday cage, and the suite was wired for bears. But waiting meant letting Harlan strut onto that stage in my skin, twisting the knife with a smile that used to be mine. The drive to the Hay Adams was gridlock purgatory, beltway snarl amplified by protesters clogging 14th Street, vets in faded camo waving, justice for Hale, signs, counterchants from contractor shills in polo shirts. I parked valet, flashed Harlan's ID. The valet called me sir, without blinking, small mercy, and rode the brass elevator to the top floor. Suite 1408. Corner unit, Potomac View, the kind of opulence that screamed taxpayer fleece. I knocked. 3 raps, our old code, and the door cracked to reveal
Me.
Nova Hale, 28 and fierce, in a sheath dress I'd bought for a donor gala last spring, hair tousled like she'd just rolled out of a briefing. But the eyes, Harlan's eyes, cold and calculating, gave it away. Eli, he purred, stepping aside with a mock curtsy. The room reeked of my perfume, Chanel No. 5, mixed with his aftershave. Right on time. Drink. A tumbler of Macallan waited on the credenza, next to the neural sync rig. Matte black helmet affair, cables snaking to a laptop humming with boot-up chimes. I ignored the glass, locked the door, and palmed the fob. Cut the shit, Harlan. Sync us back.
Now.
His laugh, my laugh, high and cutting, bubbled out. Oh, sweetie. You think this was about Robert? The old man's a speed bump. You're the prize. He circled me, heels clicking on the Persian, trailing fingers over Harlan's sleeve like appraising livestock. That brain of yours, sharp, unscarred. Policy chops. Access to the hill. I've got plans, Nova. Big ones. Eclipse is just phase 1. Hail falls, I step up. Phase 2? We merge the fleets with private equity. Drones for days. No congressional strings. Rage boiled, hot and unfamiliar in this barrel chest. You stole my body for a board seat? Dad trusted you. I trusted you. He smirked, my smirk. God, it looked vicious on my face. Trust is for midshipmen. Robert's mistake was playing knight, covering your little college scrape, that DUI you buried. I fixed it, remember? Pulled strings so you could play wonk instead of waitress. The secret hit like a broadside. The night I'd wrapped the beamer around a light pole senior year, blood on my knuckles, breathalyzer be damned. Harlan had been the fixer, not Dad. I'd borne the family wild child label, let it shadow my apps, while he cashed the IOU for this. You gambled my life for yours. I growled, lunging for the rig. He dodged, graceful in my frame, and slapped a syringe to my neck. Midazolam cocktail, fast as a snakebite. The room tilted, Harlan's bulk slumping to the carpet as darkness tunneled in. I came to zip-tied to a chair, the reversion clock ticking 2,100. Harlan as me paced, packing a go-bag with his passports, the fob dangling from a chain around my neck. You'll wake up in a psych eval, Elias. Ranting about swaps and conspiracies. By morning, Robert's toast, and I'm the hero who saved his girl from the breakdown. Monologue villainy, straight out of a Tom Clancy reject. I tested the zip ties. Harlan's wrists were thick, veins like ropes, but I'd bulked enough to strain the plastic. One problem, I rasped, stalling. The SEALs, Dad's boys. They don't buy press releases. He paused, my lips pursing. The teams? Bought and paid. Phase 3. Privatized Spec Ops. Blackwater 2.0, my water. Arrogance, thy name is Uncle. I snapped the ties on a surge of adrenaline, Jim Gaines paying off, and tackled him, my old body light as a sparring dummy under Harlan's weight. We grappled, rolling over the rug, his nails, my nails, raking his face bloody. No gore, just scratches, red welts rising like accusations. The fob clattered free. I snatched it, jammed it into the rig's port. Initiate reversion. I barked at the laptop, voice slurry from the trank. Alarms wailed, security ping incoming, but the helmets hummed to life, neural webs snapping into place. Harlan thrashed, screaming in my soprano. You bitch, you'll ruin everything. Pull of a lifetime. My mind flooding back into me, synapses firing like New Year's fireworks, his consciousness sluicing into the husk across the room. Agony first, white hot, every nerve rewriting itself, then release. I blinked awake in my skin, dress rumpled, hair a wreck, staring at Harlan's crumpled form in the chair, eyes wide with the horror of displacement. Gala starts in 90. I unbound him. Cruelty's no good. Not yet. Grabbed my phone and bolted. Dad's text burned. Where are you? Cavalry inbound. The teams, his old platoon, the ones who dragged him from a hello crash in '03, were en route, ghosts in the machine. I hit the streets, heels blistering on asphalt, hailing a cab to the DAR Constitution Hall. The driver eyed my disheveled state. "Rough night, miss?" And I laughed manic. "You have no idea." En route, I patched Dad. "It's me. Harlan's down, but he's got the room bugged. We expose on stage." His reply: "Copy. Make em remember why hails bleed blue." The hall loomed like a fortress, marble facade, floodlights sweeping the VIP cordon. I flashed my invite. Thank God Harlan hadn't canceled it, but the MP at the door balked. "Miss Hale, you're not cleared. Families. Complicated tonight." The hook of controversy. The leak had me blackballed, persona non grata in my own father's send-off. Protesters milled outside, signs jabbing. "Hale's heir or Hale's hair. Traitor blood." I shouldered past, heart hammering, slipping into the throng of gold-braided admirals and pearl-clutching spouses. The auditorium swelled, chandeliers like captured stars, the stage draped in navy blue, C-SPAN cameras swiveling like sentries. Dad stood at the podium, ramrod in his mess dress, voice steady as he recounted the '91 Gulf sortie that earned his Eagles. Applause rippled, but the undercurrent was poison, whispers of crook, disgrace. Harlan's XO took the mic next, scripted toast turning sour. "Admiral Hale's service. Admirable if flawed. Recent allegations suggest lapses in judgment." The room tensed, forks pausing midair. My cue. I pushed through the aisle, uninvited specter in a sea of stars, voice cutting the hush. "Flawed? Try fabricated." Gasps rippled, security dogs perked. Dad's eyes locked on mine. Relief. Raw as an open wound.
Nova.
The XO sneered, Harlan's sneer on a younger face. Security, remove the hysteric. But then it started. Back rows first, black berets rising, then the full 300 SEALs, Dad's shadows from Coronado to the sandbox, faces carved from granite, dress blues impeccable. They stood as one, a wave of disciplined fury, fists thumping chests in unison. "Hoo-yah!" The cry built, echoing off the rafters, drowning the XO's bluster. Cameras whirred. The SNAV half rose, confused. One chief, scarred jowl, eyes like Dad's, barked it clear. "Admiral." Not to Dad, not to the stage, to me. Me, Nova Hale, the uninvited ghost, who'd borne their commander's secrets and now wore the weight of his vindication. The salute hit like thunderclap in a confessional. 300 warriors, forged in the suck of Fallujah and the surf of BUD/us, pledging fealty to the daughter they'd dismissed as the civvy kid. Chairs scraped, boots stamped. The XO went white as sailcloth, fumbling his notes. Dad stepped aside, mic in hand, voice cracking just once. "At ease, boys. But stand the fuck by." Laughter broke the tension, ragged and real, as I climbed the steps, legs jelly in my Louboutins, but spine steel from Dad's jeans. The crowd parted, brass and bureaucrats gaping like bluegills. SEC Nav leaned in, murmuring to an aide, "Who the hell authorized that?" But the teams didn't care. Their oath wasn't to stars. It was to the man who'd bled with them, and now to the blood that carried his fire. I took the podium, heart jackhammering, the hollow fob clutched in my fist like a grenade pin. "Ladies and gentlemen, admirals, senators, and the suits who think war's a spreadsheet, this isn't a retirement. It's a reckoning." Murmurs swelled. A producer signaled cut to commercial, but C-SPAN rolled on, democracy's unblinking eye. I laid it bare. The swap, the fob's glow flickering for proof, Harlan's dossier projected from my phone onto the screen behind, forged memos, kickback ledgers, the neural sync logs time-stamped to that Arlington night. Gasps turned to outrage. A congresswoman crossed herself. An admiral slammed his fist on the linen. "This is libel," the XO yelped, but Dad's hand on his shoulder, gentle, final, silenced him.
Sans sit.
"It's over." Security swarmed the wings, but the teams formed a cordon, Human wall of ink and muscle, eyes daring the MPs to test them. Harlan's mechs, shadowy figures in the balcony, slipped out like smoke, but not before I caught a glint. Sniper scope, trained on the stage. Controversial call, the kind that keeps you up nights. I nodded to the chief petty, and he keyed his wrist mic. Eagle's Nest. This is Reaper actual. Green light tango. Outside, rotors thumped. Black Hawks inbound. Dad's cavalry closing the net. The gala dissolved into chaos. Wives herded to exits, aides dialing crisis lines, the SEC nav barking into a sat phone for the Joint Chiefs.
Me?
I stood there, the uninvited heir, as feds and windbreakers zip-tied the XO and dragged him stage left. But revenge's afterglow fades fast. Harlan, back in his own skin, sedated and shackled in a Quantico holding cell by O200, sang like a canary under sodium pentothal. Phase 1. The swap to ghost the evidence. Phase 2. Frame Dad via Nova's leak. Phase 3. The real gut punch. He tapped the neural sync for more than one jump. Test runs on POWs in black sites. Minds wiped and repurposed as drones for proxy gigs in Yemen. Dad knew. Not the full scope, but enough to greenlight the trials, believing it saved American lives. Immortality for the point men. He'd briefed me once, over classified reds. Harlan twisted it, but the sin was Dad's, the mistake I'd borne again, covering his greater good with my silence. The twist landed at dawn, in Dad's study, the same cherry-paneled war room where it started. Feds cleared, but the air hung heavy with scotch and spent shells from the evidence burn. He poured us doubles, hands steady as ever.
Nova.
The program. I buried the ugly parts. Thought I could control it. His eyes, mirrors of mine, dropped. Harlan was my fix. Groomed him to take the heat if it blew. Reversal sharp as a bayonet. The protege wasn't the snake. He was the shield. Dad, the Honorable Hawk, had authored The Beast, mind theft as national security, souls swapped in Nevada bunkers to keep boots off the ground. Harlan? Ambitious, sure, but he'd gone rogue to protect the op, framing Dad to force a shutdown before leaks hit WikiLeaks. I was the villain, kid. You took my fall twice. Why? I swirled the glass, ice clinking like handcuffs. Because you're still Dad. Flawed as fuck, but mine. We sat in silence, the Potomac dawn gilding the blinds, as outside, cleanup crews scrubbed the gala's fallout, congressional probes, DARPA firings, the team's viral clip racking 1 million views with hail redemption. Happy ending? Depends on your metric. Harlan got life in Supermax, no parole. Poetic, trapped in the skin he'd poisoned. Dad? Resigned quietly, stars pinned in a shadow ceremony for the boys who'd saluted his ghost.
Me?
They offered eagles of my own, fast track 206, for services rendered. I turned it down. Took a gig at Rand, writing white papers on ethics and augmentation tech, the kind that warn don't play God with gray matter. But the debatable part, the twist that keeps the forums aflame, is the mercy. In that Quantico cell, before the feds wheeled him away, Harlan looked at me, not with hate, but pity. You think you won Nova? The rigs got backups. Mine's in the cloud, waiting for meat. Was it bluff, or the next phase? Dad swore blind, shuttered the servers, torched the code, but I checked the dark web monthly, scanning for whispers of swapped souls haunting proxies in Caracas or Kabul. Some nights, I wake in my own bed, gasping, convinced I feel the echo of his pulse in my veins. Revenge fixed nothing. It just swapped the players. Last week, at the Vietnam Wall again, I traced LTJG Hale's name. Uncle Mike, the ghost dad, never shook. The team sent a plaque to Admiral Nova, Huya Eternal. I keep it on my desk, next to the fob, melted down to slag. Was it justice? Or just another layer of the lie? You tell me. In America, heroes are the ones who ask, and villains the ones who answer.
Me?
I'm still deciding whose side I'm on.